churches, they're in their synagogues, in their temples, and they don't know what to do. Jeremiah 4, 29, 4 through 7. It says, "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to those I carried in exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses, settle down, plant gardens, eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give to your daughters in marriage, so that you too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there and do not decrease." So here is God telling them, I know you're in a bad situation. One, you put yourself there. I know you're in a bad situation, but make the best of it. Make the best, it's so easy in urban context to be able to say, look at all this poverty, look at all this blight, look at all this pain, look at all this ugliness, and people throw their hands up and give up. Mm-hmm. Jeremiah says, don't do that. Look, make the best of this situation. And then look what it says, verse 7, it says, "Also seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I've carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper." If the city prospers, you too will prosper. Brother, it's kind of like you said, as long as our church is doing fine, we don't give a damn about the city. And we wonder why our churches are dying. Well, churches are dying because we're not working for the prosperity of the people who God has called us to bring. I want to kind of close now with one story that I think is kind of illustrative of my neighborhood and the folks that we get to work with. There was a day where we had a Project Neighborhood weekend planned. We had about 100 servants sign up to come serve for Project Neighborhood. And I didn't have near enough work to keep all 100 servants busy all day. So we sent some recon teams out into the neighborhood to ask the neighbor, hey, we're coming out this weekend. Is there anything we can help you with? Anything we can do? What do you need? How can we help? And so we sent these recon teams out. And one of the team, myself and another guy from the church, he'd been coming to the church for 2 months. So brand to any church, not just my church, to any church. So me and this guy are out together, and we step into this lady's out mowing her yard. So we step over to talk to her. She turns off her lawnmower, and my friend greets her, and I say, hey, I'm the campus pastor over there at Fort Mckinley. And no sooner had I introduced myself. She's like, oh yeah, she'd heard of us. And she goes, no sooner had I introduced myself than another car pulls up in front of her yard. And apparently these two women had some sort of altercation earlier in the day, some sort of issue going on there, but the lady in the car rolls down her window and gives the lady I'm talking to the finger. Okay? Just flips her off right out the window. And so the lady who we're talking to in the front yard just snaps. You know what I mean? You ever been so mad? It doesn't matter who's around you. Doesn't matter what's going on. Doesn't matter. You just lose your ever-loving mind. Has anybody besides me ever been there? You just... And so for the next 5 minutes, these two women have this stream of filth and the nastiest, dirtiest insults I had ever heard, and I thought, man, that was some creative use of those 7 words. There are just so many ways you can conjugate those words, and it was really an education for me. I thought I'd been around a little while, but they knew how to use these words. I'm telling you, and coming up with all your mama this and all of this kind of stuff. And so, eventually, after what seemed like an eternity, probably was only a minute or so, but what seemed like an eternity, the whole time, me and this guy are looking at each other like, what do we do? I don't know. Just chill, and we'll figure it out. And so, they eventually run out of creative ways to use these words, and so the lady in the car begins to pull off slowly, hands still out the window, okay, the whole time. And so as this lady is pulling off slowly, the lady who's in her front yard with me, the light bulb comes back on. And all of a sudden you can just see it in her eyes. She's standing there really still like that. Okay, maybe if I don't move, these two guys will just go away. You know, I can't believe all of this just happened in front of this pastor and in front of this church dude, you know, and you can just see her. She's just kind of frozen like, oh God, what do I do? 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 And so after, again, what seemed like, we were all kind of, do we say something? What do we do? How do we handle this? After what seemed like eternity, her eyes opened. She goes, now I've got it. I know what I'll do. She had the perfect solution. So at the top of her lungs, right now the car is maybe 50 yards down the road, and at the top of her lungs, she yells to this lady they've just been in this altercation. She yells, "You need to go to church, bitch!" And I was like, you know, and this guy and I, we were just kind of so stunned by the whole thing. The only thing I could think to say was, why didn't we think of it? We get t-shirts. I thought that is a, you know, but the reason I tell this story, other than the fact that it's just way funny, the reason I tell that story is to say this. To this day, that lady has never stepped foot inside Fort McKinley's building. Never stepped foot in Fort McKinley. She's never come to a worship service. Church is not something she's interested in any way, shape, or form. But when I'm in the neighborhood, she introduces me to every one of her neighbors as her pastor. This is my pastor. And she takes me to her neighbor, and she introduces me to her mother and to her children. And she introduces me to everyone she meets. Every time she sees me in the neighborhood, she says, "Pastor, how are you?" You know, because I sent teams to her house to help cut her bushes. Because I sent people, and because we built a relationship with her. And I guess, for me, what that illustrates is that the reality is, church doesn't just happen inside our little walls.
Amen.
But that we are called to be the church everywhere we are, to spread the, and that this can happen in rural and in suburban areas and in urban areas. That we are called to be the church, changing lives, transforming people into the people God has called them to be. And so I guess leaders, I want to encourage you to just continue to ask the experts, and then have the courage. At the end of the day, that's where the sticky part is. We can know all day long, but if we're not willing to actually make the changes we need to make in order to do it, tonight I'm going to share with you during my message, I'll share with you a few of the changes we made that were really hard for some of Fort McKinley folks, and some of the things that were necessary, but the outcomes that came as a result of that. So I just want to encourage you to keep being the church. Wherever you are, whatever your context looks like, keep being the church. Because the church changes lives. Amen?
Amen.
Thank you.